Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome to another episode of our podcast on Islamic financing, real estate, and financial literacy, where we educate our community about the benefit of home ownership, how to become a financial literate, and also how to become a homeowner without compromising your faith and value. Today, I'm joined by an incredible guest to our podcast, the Senior Vice President of Guidance Residential, and also the regional manager of the West Coast of Guidance Residential. Welcome, Wanda. It's good to have you here.
Well, alaikum assalam, Abdisa. Inshallah, jazakallah khair for having me for a second time, actually, in your podcast. And it will looking forward for the next hour or so for our discussion. And I'm sure that we're going to have very fruitful discussions to educate and share some of our experience with our community.
As I mentioned earlier, today we'll be covering Islamic financing, real estate investing, the circular economy in the Muslim community, which is very important, halal money, and of course the current state of the real estate market and mortgage market, and as we close out in the year 2024, and also we look forward to the year 2025. Of course, let's start with the basic one there. The basic stuff.
Yeah.
For our audience who may not be aware of Islamic financing, they're not familiar with it. Can you explain what is Islamic financing? What is the difference between Islamic financing and the traditional mortgage that's offered out there?
Well, this is the most common questions that usually comes our way, and usually people, they always look at it and they think it's the same numbers. They just name it differently and so on. And that is the most misconceptions basically when it comes to Islamic finance and why it's different when it comes especially for the mortgages specifically. So Islamically, when you give a loan to someone, it's not considered a
financing. Even Muslims get confused. True. They understand as this riba is riba is haram. But I think what I see the misconnect or lack of information or education is, what is riba itself? To be honest with you, what is riba and what's permissible in Islam? Can you go dive into a little bit on that one?
Yes, and you see, money, it is very dear to us because we work really hard to gain this money and to gain what we are making, and it's not easy to come and say, okay, you should pay more or less or whatever. So usually people are like very protective when it comes to money,
of course.
And people, same thing is like for their kids. It's like they are protective for their kids and so on. So and subhanAllah, Quran says al-mal wal banun, that these are
of course.
So these are two items are always like are dear to us as a human being. Saying so, usually the fitna comes from these two areas. Like it's like you always want to make sure that you always balance between your love for the money and balancing it with what? With making sure that you are earning it halal way, avoiding what is Allah Azza wa Jal has prevented us. I was actually listening to one of the scholars just last month, and he quoted something beautiful is in there, and that was actually like an eye-opening for us. He said, I'm not aware of a single sin more greater in Islam besides shirk is after shirk, after shirk beside riba. So after shirk, subhanallah, it comes riba is the most highest sin that you can commit, and this is the sin that Allah Azza wa Jal, He warned us in the Quran. Azza wa Jal, He says He's going to wage a world war against you, and that's, none of us want to be in this situation, and that because we want to save, or we think that we're going to save, because sometimes most of the cases it's not really you're saving. It's just like you're putting yourself. You do not want to explore the Islamic finance options because you just think, and because of the misconception that is happening out there in the market, it's more expensive, or it's the same, or something like that. So that sometimes blind people from going really looking into it more and more.
Absolutely.
And that is unfortunately how most people they get deceived by that. It's by the rumors out there, basically.
So let me take you back a little bit. So earlier you mentioned there musharaka, murabaha, ijara. These terms are very vague for a lot of people, right?
Yeah.
So I know that guidance chose to go with the musharaka contract, as you mentioned. Can you go into a little bit deep in detail and explain those for our listeners?
Yeah.
And also why guidance residential preferred the musharaka contract compared to the other two?
Sure. So let's start, for example, with the ijara. Ijara is like, think of it leasing a car. So the ownership of that car, for example, stays with the dealer. Is that correct?
Yes, correct.
And you're just leasing it at the end.
Yes.
You're just going to buy it. And
Yep.
this is like a very risky options in the real estate for
Okay.
the financing company
Okay.
and for the customer. Like it's like leaving that ownership completely in someone's hand and so on. And or what if that that company goes bankrupt, for example? So it's extremely risky to go in. Is it there?
Okay.
These are, for example, for the ijara and so on. And the second one is if you go for the murabaha contract. The murabaha contract, which is the most common contract in the Islamic world. That
Yes,
is
so,
that
yeah.
you buy. And
Easier
then you
to
resell,
practice as
and
well,
so
right?
on.
Very easy to practice as well.
But when you try to implement it here in the in this world, basically, or the U.S. market, there's many flaws in it. For example, if you want to refinance, it's very problematic. You cannot refinance because you already sold that property. How you are going to refinance
That's
it?
true. That
So you
makes
cannot
sense.
do that, period. And then there is the other options. For example, to have for the murabaha, you have to buy it, okay, and then
Rob has
own it.
purchase and resale, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Buy and
so
sell.
buy it, and then let's say I'm gonna fix it or I'm gonna clean it up or something, and then resell it. So I have to own it. So I personally have to buy it fully, and then resell it to that person, to the client. And let's say, for example, I want to make 5% profit on that, and then go and buy that property for $500,000, and I want to sell it to him at $800,000 for 30 years. Now, if I want to go and let's say if you want to, if a consumer, for example, want to go and sell that property is after a year or two, how much he's going to sell it for?
I see.
Most likely he's going to sell it maybe for 510, 520, 530. So he's going to end up losing around $300,000. And I know sometimes that they tell you, okay, the lender will, I'll write it off and so on. But these are, honestly, it's not true. Because if you are selling something at that value, that's what it is. But listen, that you assume that it is the financing company's options, you are living at their mercy.
That's
and
true.
you do not want to do that, and you really do not want to be under someone's mercy when it comes to that. And there is also the extra additional cost which comes with it. The murabaha comes, every time you buy property in the US, there is something called transfer tax.
Yes.
Okay, 80% of the times this transfer tax is like thousands of dollars.
Yes.
It's not
The percentage in Washington is 1.75%.
Yeah, so it's like you can, for example, on regular property, you can pay $10,000 and $15,000. So you can imagine, like, when you take that property, if you are doing the true murabaha, usually 80% of the time the seller pays for it. But now let's assume the first transactions, the seller paid for that, which is the one who bought the property. Now, if I take it as a financing company, now I need to sell it again. So I need to pay that transfer tax one more time.
I see.
Is that correct? So that's around additional $10,000 is going to be there if I'm going to do a true murabaha.
Yeah.
If I'm just doing artificial documentation, then it's not a true murabaha. So it's an extra cost on the customer which you want to avoid.
Okay.
Isn't there? The musharaka model that guidance has adopted and decided to go with, it's more flexible. It gives more protection to the consumer because you go with the customer in that partnerships based on how much each party put down payment, and then you take all that. For example, if you decided to pay it off earlier, no problem. All what you need just to pay off the remaining balance, and you're out. There's nothing is in there. Ownership, it's both are owning that property from day one. So there is nothing. There is no. So everyone's rights is protected as well. And you refinance, no problem. When you look at What else is risk? Is you're taking risk is in there. Me as a financing company is taking a risk compared to, for example, Murabba. There's no risk.
Yes.
I sold you a go.
Yes.
So this is like why it is way much more better for a consumer in the US here, and of course more Sharia compliant in the US. I'm not talking about different countries. I'm talking about specifically about what's the market in the US.
I mean, Islamic fatwas usually it's going to be based on a country, situation of that country, right? So I remind you of AMJA fatwa back in 2014. AMJA, they actually had 1 year of research on Islamic financing for Muslims in the US. They came up with fatwa saying that Guidance Residential and Amin Housing, which is based in California, were the most permissible financing option to go for Muslim Americans. Can you go diving into and connect this, why they made that decision, AMJA? A lot of people are,
one of the main things
aware
is
of
basically, by the way, actually, just to add this for our audience, the only two companies are Muslim-owned companies.
Absolutely.
The others are not. That's everyone.
We'll be talking about a topic that's coming up as well.
So Muslim-owned companies, these are the only two companies. And they are the only two companies that they are not a bank or affiliated with a bank or subsidiary of a bank. And banks in general has a major problem because it is, first, they are prohibited to own properties in the US for investment reasons.
Well, even the banks can actually buy a home.
But then are they truly, and that's what AMJA highlighted, is like, they do not really truly take an ownership and resell it and buy it and so on. So there's a major doubt is in there. But that is something I think people, they can, I'm sure that anyone who looked up AMJA's fatwas, he will see that. But when it comes to guidance and contract and so on, alhamdulillah, that was not a doubt whatsoever when it came to an ownership and free riba-free contract and so on. But alhamdulillah, that has been cleared and approved by AMJA.
Well, we will be also sharing the AMJA fatwa on the link below. Absolutely check it out on their website. It's been there since 2014, and that's a huge endorsement for guidance. That's a very powerful concept. Islamic financing is not just about avoiding riba. It's also about fostering equity and fairness between the customer and the company. Can you dive in a little bit? I know you talked about it a little bit. The musharaka contract. What are the few benefits of the musharaka contract? The musharaka is basically the partnership contract. What makes it unique, and also what's the benefit of it? Can you go a little bit dive into the guidance residential contract?
I want to highlight a few of the benefits. Now, maybe we'll just pick maybe top three. Let's say, for example.
Of course.
3 benefits there. So the first one, beside it, is Sharia compliant. So this is the first benefit, because this is your first goal, is it Sharia compliant as a consumer. That's what you need to look at. It's a Sharia compliant.
Something that you can compromise on, of course.
Absolutely. So that's you cannot compromise. So that's the first benefit.
Of course.
It's not riba based, it's a Sharia compliant. Then the second one is like all our commitment is non-recourse commitment. So what does that mean? It means in case of you foreclose on a property or so on, and the property was sold at less of what you, for example, still owes, let's say your finance guidance residential and so on, we lose that remaining of the money. Compare that to the mortgage industry in general. They can, it's a recourse commitment, and they go after your other assets. If you own other assets, they can go after your other assets. In our case, we lose all that money. So that's non-recourse commitment. And then the second one is, of course, the risk sharing, that when it comes for in case of eminent domain and natural disaster, guidance will bear the loss with you based on our share of that property. And that's the only company that does that, actually, is when it comes to this. No one else does that.
Any mortgage company they use, not even Islamic finance.
Of course.
Yes, okay.
Not a mortgage company or any of these banks or any of these things. They don't even consider that. And of course, the third one I'm going to say is the prepayment penalty. There's no prepayment penalty for you to pay off your contract. But adding on top of that, if you are late in your payment, for example, most banks and most conventional mortgage, they benefit from that. They actually even budget as a profit. They're going to make this much money from profit from people being late because
Yes.
they enjoy it. And that is usually up to 5% interest. That's what
Unfortunately,
they
through
charge you.
its
Yes. And for guidance, alhamdulillah, we cap that at $50, not a late payment. This is as a reminder fee for us to go and hire an administrative to make the second attempt for you and third attempt for you to remind you to make your payment, sending you mail and sending you some mails,
reminders,
and so on, reminders, and so on, the time for and that is barely to cover our cost of that, and we do not benefit a single penny out of that money. Basically, this is just to cover the administrative cost, which is what is permissible Islamically. So just to cover your permissible to cover your administrative cost.
Absolutely, that's very important. But and one thing that I wanted to expand on is because a lot of people don't understand the benefit of non-recourse commitment, right? Non-recourse commitment, because people think, it's the same thing. Banks are the same. No, it's not the same, because when you go to a bank, you are borrowing money, right? Bank is there to lend money and make interest on the money they lend you.
Correct.
So we can give an example back in 2008 and 9. When everybody, was their house was underwater and they have to, foreclose on their home and leave the house. Those people, after a few years, they actually started going back, found a job, established their, their new life, and then started buying homes, start building assets. All of a sudden, banks were actually coming after them for the money that they balance. They're coming after them. They can garnish your salary. They can come after your 401k. They can come after your saving account. They can come after your other assets. This is very important because the guidance contract is not a loan-based contract. There's a partnership contract that is only based on the property. That's a very important point I wanted to add. But another thing that I wanted to ask you is guidance is the only Islamic financing actually that is of independent Sharia board. Can you tell me a little bit more about who are the independent Sharia board and why is the requirement to have Sharia board even Islamic financing?
Yes. Great. So there's no company has 6 or 7 actually scholars and
very world-renowned scholars.
Renowned scholars from across the globe to come and establish this product. It's led with Mufti Muhammad Taqi Osmani. He is the leading scholar when it comes to Islamic finance. His books is being taught at many Islamic universities across the globe, and he is the head of our Sharia board, Mufti Muhammad Taqi Osmani. And they are the one who came up with that model, and they actually looked at what is the market here, what is allowed, and they looked at the Rabaha, they looked at the Musharaka, and they looked at the Ijara and Mudaraba, and they found out that they said this is the best contract, can work with the US market and with the also be consumer friendly and halal at the same time, and will deliver the needs of the community. So Mufti Muhammad Taqi Osmani is the chairman of our board, and we are the only company who has like 7 scholars from across the globe. Most other companies, they will have a sheikh or 2 maximum just to do this. And the reason, by the way, we have that number of shuyukh from Dawood Abu Bakr, for example, Sheikh Yusuf Talal Ronzo, and also Abdel Sattar Abu Ghudda, may Allah shower him with his mercy. He passed away actually a couple of years ago. And then there and many and there are more inshallah, names is in there. People, they can look them up definitely on our website at the list of the Sharia board. Most people, and the reason that we have that number of scholars is because we really wanted to cover the all school of thoughts when it comes to Islamic finance, because most of the times it's like it's it's if you're coming with 1 or 2 scholars, it's usually it's covering one angle of or one madhab or 2 is basically isn't there. And we wanted to do is to make sure of like this is covered 100% from all different school of thoughts, so that when you have a product that will be covered and will be basically reviewed by and approved by different madahib, different opinions, and different school of thoughts.
Yeah, absolutely. Very important. So, but just on a follow-up on this one, because when guidance was established, guidance has to go up against Freddie Mac or government institution. to actually for them to buy the musharaka contract, the musharaka mutanaqisa contracts are the investors. So the question really that gets asked a lot is, what is Guidance relationship with Freddie Mac?
Yeah.
Why Guidance has to sell its contract to Freddie Mac? What's the relationship there? Could you expand a little bit for our audience?
So just to confirm, we're not going against. We're trying to convince them.
Yes. Oh,
to
yes.
buy our.
Well, we had to get an 18 law firms, right?
Yeah.
Guidance has to actually get 18 law firms for them to accept it, to even give us a chance, right?
Yeah.
It's the biggest thing even for Guidance to achieve that, because Freddie Mac never bought a Sharia contract before 1999, right?
Yes, absolutely. So Fannie, let's start with Fannie. Who's Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac? Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac, they are not a bank and they are not a lender. So they don't lend you money, and they are not a bank. You cannot go and deposit money in their accounts. They are investors. Basically, were chartered by the Congress to facilitate home ownership for the American families in the U.S. Because in the past, like that was like home ownership was mainly is for the rich people who has money, wealth, can afford to pay 15 to 25% interest on a contract, on a loan, and come up with a high down payment with short-term loans and so on. So these organizations, when they came and they started establishing, and with the Congress as well putting some kind of passing some laws and guidelines and so on to facilitate that home ownership, and what they did is basically they put some kind really facilitated the home ownership, which we endorse as Muslims. We would like to help people to have on home ownership. It's just like what we do not want is the riba path, basically to go and have an ownership. Home ownership is in that way, and that was basically the hard job was to go on with Freddie Mac and Fannie to convince them and to make them accept a Sharia-compliant contract. Now they are, when they go and they buy from Bank of America, and they buy from, these large mortgage companies, these contracts or these banks, they buy debt. You say so the banks, they lend the customers money, and that is a riba contract, and then when they sell the contract to Fannie and Freddie, they are selling them debt, and selling debt also on a profit that is also riba. So what we did is we said, okay, well, we don't have actually riba, we don't lend money, so our contract with a customer is musharaka contract. So they go, we have an asset here, and what we ask Fannie or Freddie is to come and take our position on that contract or on that asset. So when we sell asset. We sell a share in that property. So we do not sell money. We sell a share in an asset, basically. And that is the main difference when we as Guidance deal with Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac compared to regular conventional bank and or a mortgage company. That's what they do. They sell them money. So that we don't do that, and that is the main differences when it comes to that.
And
that was not an easy task, and we call it, actually, I personally call it, it's a breakthrough.
Absolutely,
to getting these organizations to accept a Sharia-compliant contract. That is a really major breakthrough for the Muslim community in the US.
Absolutely, because before 1999, before Guidance was established, there was no option for Muslim Americans to actually buy a home, because either you have to buy cash or you have to get a 5 years loan. Even that one was riba. Of course, Freddie Mac also, they looked into as a minority contract. They made an exception, accepted the Guidance contract. Alhamdulillah, with Guidance have helped almost $10 billion finance. That's $50,000 Muslim Americans achieved home ownership.
Yes.
All right, now let's switch the gear a little bit. Okay. Let's dive into real estate investing and buying a home to live in it. How does Guidance Residential help people to buy a home for the residential purposes, or investing in real estate to buy and live in it?
Do you know, Abdisa, that 80% of the American families, they build their wealth through real estate?
Absolutely.
So buying a home, even as an owner-occupied, is the biggest investment you can, most likely, for majority of people, the biggest investment that they can do. At first, it is a very secured, I would say, business transaction, because there is an actual assets that you can rely on. It's different than, for example, you go and buy and invest, for example, in stocks, or you or you invest in even in a business, because that business can extremely go and lose all the money at once. With buying a home, so you still have that assets, even if the price drops a little bit or goes up a little bit, the assets still there. It's like the losses usually is very little compared to other businesses. So it is the most secure business. And since the 60s until today, real estate has been going up. Now, even when it dipped for 2 to 4 years, and then it goes up back again. And that's why you call it the best investment it can do. Now, what are other options to do as an investment? If you have your owner occupied, or you know what, you're living with your family, for example, if I'm a single guy and sitting home and so on, what I can do, I can buy an investment property. You can buy an investment property, you can buy a condo, you can buy a single family, you can buy a duplex, triplex, fourplex. All these are considered, properties that you can, residential use, that you can invest in them and have them and rent them out and earn profit on that money in a secured manner, without really, if you don't like risk and you would like to avoid too much risk is in there, this is definitely the best option for you to be in investing as a young professional, if you are a guy, and if you want to invest for your family as a brother or sister, basically, is in there. This is definitely the best thing that you can do for your family as well.
Yeah. So real estate is not about also individual living in a better house. It's also, we look at it as a community as well, right? Students of a homeowner graduate much better in college than, or even high school, than someone who's renting a home. We know that, of course, homeowners live in a better neighborhood than someone who's renting a home. Additionally, of course, homeowners contribute more to the community, to the masjid, to the Islamic schools. So do you see this, like what guidance is contributing, helping turning real estate into generational wealth for Muslim communities? And where do you see the circular economy of Muslim communities? Do you think that there's a change? Like, do you think that home buyers are actually contributing to our community compared to someone who's renting?
This guidance, we did more than $10 billion in Islamic finance.
Yeah.
We did. Can you imagine that $10 billion? How much is it now?
Yeah.
Okay. Most likely this 10 billion is now maybe 15 billion or 20 billion or even more, because since we started is in there. So that's in itself like a growth. The Muslim community wealth has grown just by doing that themselves. And for you as on the individual level, when you buy a property compared to renting, if you just take a simple math, for example, if you are renting, paying $3,000 for 7 years, for example, that's around $252,000.
Yeah.
Just if you look at that number.
Yeah.
Compare that, let's say that you are paying $3,500 for a mortgage. Not $3,000, $3,500, slightly higher. Okay. And after 7 years, that's around $294,000. If you look at that number, it's almost like in that range. But after 7 years, what you paid for rent is all gone. Am I correct?
That's true.
And most likely the rent is no longer $3,000. Most likely it's $3,500 from where you started, and maybe more.
Yeah.
But let's assume it's $3,500. So most likely you did not even pay $252. Most likely you even paid $300 and plus. Is it there? You take that compared to what? To someone owned a home. And after 7 years, now every year his property is appreciating minimum 2 to 3%.
That's true.
That's what it is in the markets, 2 to 3% appreciations. We don't want to say the last
4 years, last 6 years, probably 10% a year.
It has been appreciating around 10%.
Yes.
But I'm going to say just the 3%. Okay. If you take 3% times 7, that's 21% appreciation. Am I correct?
Yeah.
And you take that, and part of your payment, that what you were paying, let's say the $3,500, let's say just 20% goes towards your equity. Suddenly, you have saved around $250,000 or $300,000 compared to someone who saved nothing. That's why it's much better to go and get into the real estate and buy a property, own a property, even or a rental property, than sitting outside of the real estate, because real estate appreciate all the time.
No, absolutely. But what do you say to those people who argue that, oh, buying a home, you know, you have to maintenance problem, you know, you will have limitation of traveling, you know, you cannot move around. There's a big responsibility. There are always people say that. I don't know, even online, there's some famous people say this, or don't buy a home, rent. If you ask me, I believe those people, they want to make us tenants.
Yeah.
So we can fill up their apartments. But what do you say? What's your opinion on this? Why they're pushing this?
I think the first thing that you're going to buy a home, you're going to be a handyman. You're going to learn, by the way. It's
of
not
course,
by force. You're going to learn by default. I'm not going to call a guy to come and fix for me the door and they pay him like $200. I'm going to fix it. I'm going to learn how to change that.
On that point, sorry for cutting you off. Last night, when I left office, well, you know, I hired people to work on my rental property because I'm in between tenant and tenant, right?
Yeah.
And then when I got there, the guy left already.
Yeah.
So I have a kitchen cabinet handle that I bought from Amazon.
Yeah.
No one is there to help me.
Yeah.
I say, I have to do it. I had my screwdriver. I got to it. It took me 30 minutes. It looks beautiful.
Yes.
I was forced to do it.
Yes.
There was no option. Just to get to the point.
And that most likely saved you $100.
Oh, more than that. Probably the guy would have charged me $200.
So that's what it is. So you actually going to learn how to do things in your hands. You're going to become like handyman. Of course, there are difficult things that you might need to call. I would say a bigger ticket like a handyman or a contractor or something like that. But these are very rare. It's not like something people that you will do. It's very rare that you have a really major big ticket on your house that often. And you know what? Do you upgrade your car every year? No. Most likely you upgrade it like every few years.
Yes, exactly.
And if you want to upgrade your home every few years, go ahead and do it. If you don't want to upgrade
when you say upgrade
home,
means change, is that what you mean?
Like for example, someone want to change the carpet, for example. Okay.
10-year, probably.
Yeah, so basically, it's the same thing with your cars. You don't change your car like every year, unless like, mashallah, that's you're wealthy, which is good for you. Then you can change your carpet every year as well at home. Yeah. But if not, most likely it's going to take you 10 years to change, for example, a carpet, a roof, 20 years. Yes. Like all these major tickets, it takes a very long time for you to change and replace and so on. So really don't be worried about this and don't get caught by that, basically.
I mean, if you break something, and even if you're renting, by the way, if you break something on the property, you have a responsibility of fixing it.
Yeah, 100%.
I mean, I don't know how people understand it. If my tenant breaks something, it's something that's not wear and tear. I mean, they have to fix it. It's the same thing. I mean, if the doorknob is not working, you may have to fix it, even if you're renting. Does that make sense? At the end of the day, as I said earlier, I think these people are very wealthy people. They want Americans tenants, and I think we want Americans to be homeowners. I think especially we want Muslim Americans to become homeowners because we are the most underserved community when it comes to homeownership. Because there are a lot of qualified Muslims I meet every single day in my work, and they have been buying home because of riba, right?
Yep.
We're here to help them. We are help them.
Absolutely.
But those people, I think they need to be avoided from listening to, because you can't listen to them.
No. So just I will say, everything that you do in your life, you're gonna hear. If you have never got married, before you get married, everyone is gonna warn you.
Yeah.
But marriage is basically, it's a beautiful thing.
Yeah.
If you wanna basically gonna go on vacation, you will hear someone tell you, oh, this place or that place. If you wanna go and buy a car, it's the same thing. Everything, someone will come and tell you something about it. But it's just what you need to think is, look at the statistics of people who have home ownership. What happened to these people? Look at yourself. When you started to think about buying a home 10 years ago and you thought it is expensive, where is it after 5 years and where is it now? Every time you hold, home prices goes up. Every time you hold and you wait, and you want to save more money for the down payment so your monthly payment goes lower. That is always the case. So I really encourage you, if you can afford it, buy it.
Could you give us a real life example of a customer that actually benefited from home ownership?
Your customer.
Put me on the spot. No, I'd love to share about that actually. It's I believe it was around 2017 or 18. A customer, he was renting for actually 10 years, and the same house.
Yes.
And the seller decided for some reason they wanted to sell it to him. Right? They offered him, "You want to buy this house? We will sell it to you." He reached out to me, and we were able to run the numbers for him. We qualify him with 3% down. That's the only saving that he had. He put 3% down, and he bought the house. And then 2 years or 3 years, I don't recall exactly, in 2020, I think 2020, when the rate goes down, he reached out to me. He said, "I want to refinance my house. I want to take cash out." And the good thing about the property appreciated in value more than 100,000. He was able to keep 20% equity in the house.
Yes.
Cash out 100,000 from the house to build an ADU on this property.
Exactly. So he put $15,000 down payment.
Yes. And he cashed out
after 5 years. Let's assume
3-4 years. Not 3-4 years.
I'm gonna give it 5 years. I know it was only less than that because in 2020, I remember that very well. It was 3 years later, but I'm gonna say 4 or 5 years.
Yes.
So he was able to have 20% equity and $100,000 cash in his hand.
Yeah.
That is almost $200,000.
It's the power of real estate.
From $15,000 that he invested at his down payment when he bought the house.
Yeah.
That's it.
I mean, to get this kind of investment return, to be honest with you, you need to buy Bitcoin when it was at the bottom. Sell it at 100,000. That's the only way you can actually get this kind of return. This is super amazing.
Are you aware of any crypto coming up soon that's going to be that much, making you that much money?
Well, I next time what I would do, this is my strategy. I'll wait for Bitcoin to go down. I'll buy it.
By the way, when it went down, if you noticed, like beginning of the year, people said, okay, it's going to go even lower down. Now it's 100,000.
The issue with the speculative investment, Munder, because it's very difficult. Like you put your money in there, like it has to be some money that is extra money. Like I have $20,000. I don't mind. I would look at it as probably gambling kind of investment because I'll throw this money in a Bitcoin. We don't know what's halal or haram. That's a question. But if the way to do it, you throw the money in there, just leave it alone. Otherwise, you get stressful. It goes up and down. Your temperature is going up and down. That's very difficult.
That's the beauty about real estate. You don't have to think about that.
No, I love for me, investing is real estate. Something that you can touch, is tangible, and you can. If you rent it, you're actually making people's life better. You are providing a housing for people, and even the government. They want those people who invest in real estate provide housing because you are doing government job. You're providing housing for people, and the government gives you a lot of benefit. You get tax deduction. You get to depreciate your house and expense it.
And do 1031 exchange.
When you sell it, you don't need to pay tax. You can do 1031 exchange. The government wants people to invest in real estate and provide housing for people.
And you can pass that wealth to your kids.
Absolutely.
Without even paying taxes on it.
Absolutely.
You can have even living trust, and you have there are so many things that you can do.
Another thing on the add on this, when you invest in real estate, for example, if you're buying a $500,000, you're not actually bringing $500,000.
No.
You are probably bringing 20% of it.
Yeah.
Let's say you invest 20%, $100,000, but your property is appreciating by $500,000.
Yeah.
Compare that with investing in stock. If I invested $100,000 in stock, even if it's appreciating value, the $100,000 is going to appreciate. It's not the 500,000.
So the 100,000 leverage. Even if you make 100%,
yes,
that makes 200,000.
200,000.
But in the real estate, especially in the good markets, there are some good markets that can appreciate way much more than that.
Well, appreciation is coming from the leverage as well, because the 500,000 was appreciated, and then that's
and the main thing is not risky as well. It's a peace of mind.
Yeah.
Really, you do not have to be stressed. I'm telling you, personally, even when I bought some stocks and I saw them collapse to zero, I was like, my goodness, that's something that I do not know how to do. And it's money became worth around 10 or 20% of what is its value. And because I do not know what to do in this. In the real estate, even if you do not know, buying a property, it doesn't collapse, it doesn't go down. Even if it does,
it's insured.
2 to 3 years, and then it goes up again.
Yeah.
So that is always the trend is in there.
I mean, I wish a lot of people understand, because even my own experience with guidance, people who started buying home in 2016, 2017, 2018, they were thinking the market is going to crash. They are the happiest people ever. When I meet them, they're the most thankful people, the most grateful people that they have actually decided to do it. I was talking to a customer earlier, just a few minutes ago. I met him first at his restaurant. He used to own a restaurant. And he had a good income, good down payment. 2016, he wanted to buy a home.
Yeah.
2017, 2018, 2024, now almost 8 years, he wanted to buy a home still. You know, the homes that back in then was 350 he can buy in Kent. Those homes are 800, 780. That's how crazy it is in a very, very short time.
Yeah.
And that brings me to one very important question that I wanted to ask you. If a younger Muslim person from our community, how important is it for them to understand this concept? And then how can they tap in and benefit from it? You have kids, teenagers, people who are just graduating from college. What do you advise for them? What do you advise them?
Any millennials, now maybe even Gen Z, now it's about time for them to get actually even to the real estate. As soon as you graduate and have a good job, right? Okay. You need a couple of years, good job, stable job. After you complete your third year, think of buying. Don't wait any longer. Just as soon as you start that, yes, buy it when you are young, because by the time you want to get to your 50, for example, or something like that, you have paid this house fully in full, and maybe actually on the side you're able to buy additional 1 or 2 extra or 3 homes as a rental property for you, as an extra investment for you, even kids when you become like elderly person. Because the earlier you get into this, onto the real estate, the definitely the better it is. Don't try to time the market. There is nothing called I'm going to time it. It does not work. It never worked. And trust me, if it works, the people who work in this field, they would have been the richest in the market.
That's true.
They don't. It's very difficult to time the market because nobody knows the market, how it goes. Month over month is different. Year over year is different. Rates, for example, a couple of months ago, 3 months ago, dropped. Then it went up.
Yeah.
Then it went down. This is always happen, and to time that market is very difficult.
Yeah.
Just if you can afford it, do it. Don't wait.
That's why they're called time in the market beats timing the market, because time in the market means that you buy and keep it the house. You actually going with the market.
Yes.
If you're trying to time the market, you'll be losing.
Correct.
So actually recently I've helped the youngest customer that I ever helped. He graduated last year, July.
Excellent. Okay, excellent.
He bought his home right now. This just 2 months ago.
This guy is going faster than my advice, which I commend him on.
A lot of people don't know that, because if you graduated from college, let's say you graduated with a computer science degree, or you became a lawyer, accountant, whatever it is, right? We have that exemption on the 2 years requirement.
Yeah.
So if you just graduated, if you find a job, you actually qualify for mortgage. I actually don't even tell them to wait 2 years. If you can afford a 3% down payment and comfortably afford the mortgage payment, I think it's a good idea to jump into real estate.
Absolutely. It's usually just because of the beginning. What I said, like wait a couple of years, is because people who graduate in the beginning, sometimes they shift jobs. And I'll say that's as soon as you have a stability.
Yeah.
If you have the stability from after 6 months, do it.
Yeah.
Just like the moment that you have a stability, just do that and move forward with your life. And I think you're not going to regret it for sure.
Munda, as we wrap up 2024, in the current real estate market, how did you describe the current mortgage industry and the real estate market at the end of 2025? And what is your forecast for in the year 2025? We have a new administration coming into the White House as well.
Yeah.
That would have it's going to bring its own policy, especially with the Dodge that's run by Elon Musk. They're going to do a lot of cutting spending, federal spending as well.
Yes.
I'm sure that would have trickled down to the mortgage industry. Also, it's going to impact the real estate market as well. I believe at that point, because the Trump administration, they were doing the first term,
Yes.
Maybe they'll be cutting down a lot of regulations. Republicans are known for that, right?
Yeah.
So what do you expect for the year 2025 for our audience? And also, what's the current real estate market? What should be the strategy for a first-time home buyer to tap into this real estate market and don't miss out?
The 2025 is expected. Actually, there is a growth in that market, and actually the growth is actually in two areas. One is like, for example, for the financing companies, because they might going to be doing more refinance, so its rate is expected to drop more and more and so on. But then the purchase, many people are expected the purchase businesses to grow at least around 10% more. And one of the main reasons is because rate is going to most likely continue to drop to the range that makes people more comfortable in buying a home, or make them take that step who's been holding on this. And even for the people who even thinking to sell their property to buy a new property, because sometimes people who have low rate, they do not want to sell.
Yeah.
Because of they have a very, very favorable rate now, and they do not go and pay double that rate with the current market rate now. So when rate drops, most likely these people, they are going to be willing to sell more and to go and buy a new property, or I will call it upgrade basically in their property.
I see.
So 2025 looks like it's promising. It looks like from what we are hearing, hopefully that inshallah is going to be promising. And I personally think if anyone is looking to buy, my real advice is, if you wanted to buy, go ahead and buy within the next 3 months and so on, because that is still the market, what we call it the slow season. It's like the winter is usually the slow season for the real estate. So you are not going to be in a bidding war in the market. Compare that to the summer when many people are moving during the summer, school people, they take in consideration for their kids, they change schools and so on. So now in the winter, less people, they move around, and that most likely will give you will be able to get a better deal than most likely in the summer, even though that in the summer there's usually more inventory.
Yeah, actually, obviously real estate is very local and also seasonal, right?
Yeah.
But this year, one thing I observed is, I would say the second half of the year, there has been more inventory in the market.
Yeah.
It has been a buyer's market. Even half of the summer, it has been a buyer's market because the home buyers were able to get a better deal, negotiate on their purchases, get a closing cost paid on by the sellers. Even the purchase price was reduced. Actually, most of the home was selling 95 to 90% below the list price. And the percent, like if the house is listed for like 500,000, end up selling for 470, 460. At least in Washington State, in some market. Still some market, of course, is still competitive depending on the house. And with the new administration, as I mentioned earlier, coming in, the new year, I think Trump is expected to push some pressure on the Feds for the rate to go down. So in that kind of strategy, I think it's best for customers to buy the property right now, lock in the house when it's a good market. One, you have a lot of options, because if you go out for shopping, you may have like 30, 40 homes in one area available for you to choose from.
Yes.
In the normal market, in a very competitive market, you can see one home, you have to put an offer.
Correct.
Because there's no home. If it's a home, 50 people are going to jump on it. Right now, at least in Washington, and I'm also same thing from Oregon and California as well. I've observed that people who have been waiting for a long time, they can tap into the market right now. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, definitely having the market. I'm not sure if it's a buyer market. I would say it's an equally market, like between the seller. No one will have advantage. I would say buyer does not have an advantage and seller does not have an advantage. I would say it depends on the neighborhood. Definitely from one neighborhood to another, it makes a difference in on the market itself and how much you're paying for the property. But overall, I think you are not competing against too many customers who are going for the same exact house, and that is helping the buyers not to be in a bidding war in certain areas. Of course, there is always hot market. Always there's in every state, in every city, and so on. But overall, customers are able to get what they are looking for, and sellers as well able to get what they are looking for
Yeah.
in a fair way, I will say.
That's true.
Home prices really did not jump that much, and we know it also did not drop as much as
But like, based on
maybe
my-
some relaxations. It depends upon in the
Yes.
zip code that you're talking about.
Yes. In general, like for example, what happening was because a lot of homes, as you mentioned earlier, they had a very low rate,
Yeah.
and then they were not willing to sell their homes unless they have to move.
Yeah.
Like those, and then what happened is some people were like, you know what, they start getting fed up with the, with that. They start saying, you know what, 5% is okay, 6% they can get adjusted to it, and then they also had a high price expectation for their homes. All of a sudden, people are not willing to pay for, so they had to cut down the price. Probably the price was inflated. Start coming down a little bit. When you have a price inflated, start coming down, probably you got a deal, it's discount.
Yeah.
Probably that's the feeling.
Yeah.
Wrapping up our inshallah, to bring you to the last subject that I want to discuss with you is the millennial home buyers and those first time home buyers. Because even at the Muslim community, we have second generation Americans who are born and raised here. What this is like probably in next 5 to 10 years, probably the largest home buyers in the next 5 to 10 years, I would say. What are the guidances plan to help this community, first-time home buyers? What are the program that we guidance offers to help this youth and the first-time home buyers to tap into the real estate home ownership or generational wealth?
First, we have down payment assistance, by the way. It's like there's $2,500 actually down payment assistance. This can be applied towards the down payment. We're working with investors, and there are some actually programs in each of your local cities. Some of these programs, guidance actually can look into them and see if we can take them and accept them as a Shariah-compliant product and so on. And we have done so in some areas, some markets, and so on.
Yeah.
And then I will say what you need to look at is in this area. We have been trying to connect with our community or with the millennials specifically. We have been doing webinars, seminars, podcasts, and trying to educate them and make them basically even participating in conventions and so on. So people, they can come and ask on one-on-one. And I highly recommend for anyone who has questions to really pick up the phone and call you. For example, you're definitely will be more you. And of course, we have 34 different states that they can call. Isn't there? But you're their man here, senior account executive, great experience.
The host of the podcast as well.
Yes, absolutely, definitely isn't there. And I promise you that you're not going to be better find a better person who can structure your contract.
So on that point, so what's this the first step they have to take? Let's say if they want to buy a home or they want to buy a home, thinking of buying a home in next year, what are the first steps they have to take to get started with guidance?
Pre-approved.
Okay.
Definitely.
Well, how do they get that done?
So pre-approved. And what you need is just 5 items, basically. What we need is like first 2 years taxes, 2 years W-2s, 2 months bank statement, copy of your ID, and a copy of your last 30 days paycheck.
So these are documents required for pre-approval.
For the pre-approval.
What is pre-approval itself? Just wanted to... Because a lot of people have never heard of this. So this is big words here.
Yes. So pre-approval is it's like basically it's a commitment from us as a financing company that we are we are pre-approving you for a certain amount of that you qualify for, or you can qualify for, so you can go and shop in a market. The seller, when he sees this letter, they consider that is like it's some money basically in your hand because you're being pre-approved. And we do state in our letter basically your credit score has been reviewed, your asset has been reviewed, your income. We review all of these things to make sure that when the seller receive your offer on any property, they take it really serious. And it's not just someone random person coming and looking at their property, but when you submit that with a pre-approval, especially the way that our pre-approval is structured, it's really basically we take that very serious.
Okay.
It's like so it's it's like money in your hand. I will say that.
It's like a cash offer, basically.
Yeah.
Well, if you're a millennial looking to buy a home, I think as Munda said, the first step is start with education. Ask question, try to understand your finances, get a pre-qualified and pre-approved. Obviously, you have to reach out to us. We also have option to do it online, right? So one last point, we also have a sister company called Guidance Home Services.
Yes.
So there's a lot of real estate agents that are following this page, probably they're in the audience. How do they be part of this program, and what are the benefits of this program?
Yes, actually, if you are a real estate agent and you are in this field, we have a sister company, is Guidance Home Services, where you can be part of our network. Guidance Home Services manages all our pre-approved customers. Basically, all our pre-approved customers, they get assigned through Guidance Home Services to our realtors to help them find a home and to help the customers find a home. And if you are a real estate agent, I highly recommend that you become and join our network, because you will benefit from that. You will receive from us pre-approved buyers, definitely we have scanned them and we looked at their qualification and we have pre-approved them, and they can. And of course, if you have also leads from your end, you would like us to pre-approve them, we'll be more than happy to assist in that and to help you in this as well. We helped many customers, many realtors as actually is in there. We have more than 1,600 realtors in our network, and it will be great to add you in if you are one of those realtors who is hungry to go and help the community as well.
Thank you, Mother.
Yeah.
Thank you for your valuable insight. Before we go, any thought that you want to share with our listeners about Islamic financing, about any important thought you think you can add?
I will say for us as in this field, if you are thinking to buy and you can afford to buy, please don't wait. There is no need for you to wait. It's like you are waiting for something that you think might happen, and I'll tell you, even if it happens, honestly, you don't have to worry about it, because later on, basically, even if you buy a home and home price drops, it's going to go up. Don't worry about that. And timing that market, don't time it. Just if you can afford to buy, go ahead and buy it. Don't wait on this. That's number one. Second, I highly recommend that you stick with your Muslim-owned businesses if you are into helping that community. If you are sticking to Islamic finance and so on, look at that. Look at who's authentic and definitely that help the community at all different levels, whether it's your masjid, whether it's your school district or your schools or your non-profit organizations, and see how you can basically work with us, and we'll be more than happy, definitely as guidance, to help you in this area.
Well said, Munder. Thank you again for joining us, Munder. And thank you, our audience. If you stayed this far in this podcast, it looks like you're looking to buy a home, and I'll put my contact information below. Yeah. Please be sure to share this information, this podcast, with your family and friends. Share it on social media. Like and subscribe as well. Inshallah. Thank you so much. Assalamu alaikum.